When the master returned to his room, he found that other devotees had arrived, among them Ram, Nityagopal and Kedar. They all saluted the master, who greeted them cordially. He asked Nityagopal, "Will you eat something now?" "Yes," the devotee answered. Nityagopal, who was 23 or 24 years old and unmarried, was like a child. His mind was always soaring in the spiritual realm. He visited the master sometimes alone and sometimes in Ram's company. The master had observed the spiritual state of his mind and had become very fond of him. He remarked now and then that Nityagopal was in the state of a Paramhamsa. Warning to monks. After Nityagopal had finished eating, the master took him aside and gave him various instructions. A certain woman, about 31 years old and a great devotee, often visited Sri Ramakrishna and held him in high respect. She had been much impressed by Nityagopal's spiritual state and, looking upon him as her own son, often invited him to her house. Master to Nityagopal, "Do you go there?" Nityagopal, like a child, "Yes, I do. She takes me." Master, "Beware, holy man. Go there once in a great while, but not frequently. Otherwise you will slip from the ideal. Maya is nothing but woman and gold. A holy man must live away from women. All sink there. Even Brahma and Vishnu struggle for life in that whirlpool." Nityagopal listened to these words attentively, and to himself, "How strange! This young man has developed the state of a Paramhamsa. That is what the master says now and then. Is there still a possibility of his falling into danger in spite of his high spiritual state? What an austere rule is laid down for a sadhu! He may slip from his ideal by associating intimately with women. How can an ordinary man expect to attain liberation unless such a high ideal is set by holy men? The woman in question is very devout, but still there is danger. Now I understand why Chaitanya punished his disciple, the younger Haridas, so severely. In spite of his teacher's prohibition, Haridas conversed with a widow devotee, but he was a sannyasi. Therefore Chaitanya banished him. What a severe punishment! How hard is the rule for one who has accepted the life of renunciation! Again, what love the master cherishes for this devotee! He is warning him even now, lest he should run into danger in the future. "Beware, holy man!" These words of the master echoed in the hearts of the devotees like the distant rumbling of the thunder. The master went with the devotees to the northeast veranda of his room. Among them was a householder from the village of Dakshineshwar who studied Vedant philosophy at home. He had been discussing Om with Kedar before the master. He said, "This eternal word, the Anahat Shabd, is ever present both within and without." Master, "But the word is not enough. There must be something indicated by the word. Can your name alone make me happy? Complete happiness is not possible for me unless I see you." Devotee, "That eternal word itself is Brahman." Master to Kedar, "Oh, don't you understand? He upholds the doctrine of the rishis of olden times. They once said to Rama, 'O Rama, we know you only as the son of Dashrath. Let sages like Bhardwaj worship you as God incarnate. We want to realize Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss absolute.'" At these words Rama smiled and went away. Kedar, "Those rishis could not recognize Rama as an incarnation of God. They must have been fools." Master, seriously, "Please don't say such a thing. People worship God according to their tastes and temperaments. The mother cooks the same fish differently for her children, that each one may have what suits his stomach. For some she cooks the rich dish of pilau, but not all the children can digest it. For those with weak stomach she prepares soup. Some again like fried fish or pickled fish. It depends on one's taste." Incarnation of God. The rishis followed the path of Gyan. Therefore they sought to realize Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss absolute. But those who follow the path of devotion seek an incarnation of God to enjoy the sweetness of bhakti. The darkness of the mind disappears when God is realized. In the Puran, it is said that it was as if 100 suns were shining when Rama entered the court. Why then weren't the courtiers burnt up? It was because the brilliance of Rama was not like that of a material object. As the lotus blooms when the sun rises, so the lotus of the heart of the people assembled in the court burst into blossom. As the master uttered these words standing before the devotees, he suddenly fell into an ecstatic mood. His mind was withdrawn from external objects. No sooner did he say, "The lotus of the heart burst into blossom," than he went into deep samadhi. He stood motionless, his countenance beaming and his lips parted in a smile. After a long time he returned to the normal consciousness of the world. He drew a long breath and repeatedly chanted the name of Rama, every word showering nectar into the hearts of the devotees. The master sat down, the others seating themselves around him. Master to the devotees: ordinary people do not recognize the advent of an incarnation of God. He comes in secret. Only a few of his intimate disciples can recognize him. That Rama was both Brahman absolute and a perfect incarnation of God in human form was known only to 12 rishis. The other sages said to him, "Rama, we know you only as Dashrath's son." Can everyone comprehend Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss absolute? He alone has attained perfect love of God, who, having reached the absolute, keeps himself in the realm of the relative in order to enjoy the divine Leela. A man can describe the ways and activities of the Queen if he has previously visited her in England. Only then will his description of the Queen be correct. Sages like Bharadwaj adored Rama and said, "O Rama, you are nothing but the indivisible Sat-Chit Anand. You have appeared before us as a human being, but you look like a man because you have shrouded yourself with your own Maya." These rishis were great devotees of Ram and had supreme love for God. Masters' different spiritual moods. Presently some devotees from Konnagar arrived, singing kirtan to the accompaniment of drums and cymbals. As they reached the northeast veranda of Sri Ramakrishna's room, the master joined in the music, dancing with them, intoxicated with divine love. Now and then he went into samadhi, standing still as a statue. While he was in one of these states of divine unconsciousness, the devotees put thick garlands of jasmine around his neck. The enchanting form of the master reminded the devotees of Chaitanya, another incarnation of God. The master passed alternately through 3 moods of divine consciousness. The inmost, when he completely lost all knowledge of the outer world; the semi-conscious, when he danced with the devotees in an ecstasy of love; and the conscious, when he joined them in loud singing. It was indeed a sight for the gods to see the master standing motionless in samadhi, with fragrant garlands hanging from his neck, his countenance beaming with love, and the devotees singing and dancing around him. When it was time for his noon meal, Sri Ramakrishna put on a new yellow cloth and sat on the small couch. His golden complexion blending with his yellow cloth enchanted the eyes of the devotees. After his meal, Sri Ramakrishna rested a little on the small couch. Inside and outside his room crowded the devotees, among them Kedar, Suresh, Ram, Manmohan, Girindra, Rakhal, Bhavna, then M. Rakhal's father was also present. Efficacy of earnest jap. A Vaishnava Goswami was seated in the room. The master said to him, "Well, what do you say? What is the way?" Goswami: "Sir, the chanting of God's name is enough. The scriptures emphasize the sanctity of God's name for the Kali Yuga." Master: "Yes, there is no doubt about the sanctity of God's name. But can a mere name achieve anything without the yearning love of the devotee behind it? One should feel great restlessness of soul for the vision of God. Suppose a man repeats the name of God mechanically while his mind is absorbed in women and gold. Can he achieve anything? Mere muttering of magic words does not cure one of the pain of a spider or scorpion sting. One must also apply the smoke of burning cow dung.